Hi everyone and welcome back. It's Mindy with Mindy Egan Design, and today's card is going to be featuring this adorable little monkey and this leaf stencil, both from Simon Says Stamp, and it's from their Sending Sunshine release. So what I'm going to be starting with is creating my background. I had this idea to be peering through the leaves into a night sky, and with this stencil it's designed very different. So when you're inking, you're actually going to be creating a negative space, and where the stencil is what's going to be white if you don't have anything down on your paper. So what I'm starting with is I'm covering my Bristol smooth cardstock first, and I'm using Lucky Clover Distress Oxide ink. I'm putting a really heavy coat around the area where my leaves are going to be. So mainly around the edges. I'm not too worried about the middle part of my card because I have a different idea for that. And I'm using a Post-it note to cover my fingertips because I don't want to get fingerprints all over the place and smudges. So I'm just gonna clean in between, and now I can create that inner part of my stencil. So what I'll do is I'll put my stencil down, flip over my cardstock, and tape that down in place with some micropore tape. And this is just something I happen to have on hand that I use to hold my stencils down, and I'm taping around the edges of the stencil. The stencil's kind of tricky, I'm not going to lie, when it comes to ink blending with it, because it is very delicate and those leaves can move around very easy. So you can either do it this way with the micropore tape, or if you're comfortable using like a low tack adhesive, I think Kelly Latavola uses like a low tack glue to do it, but I've never done that. So I'm just going with what I know. I'm just giving you another option. So I just did it with the micropore tape, flipped it over, and now I'm going to create kind of a galaxy background. Like I said, I wanted to have like peering through the leaves at a night sky. So I came in with just a little bit of Wilted Violet, and now I'm coming in with the Blueprint Sketch Distress Oxide inks. I'm using a jumbo sponge dauber to do this, and very carefully. I sped this up quite a bit because this did take me a little while, probably a good 10 to 15 minutes, because I'm just dabbing. I'm not really pushing down or out or moving like I normally would. I'm dabbing that color down, but you got to be careful so you don't get too much ink and get squishy and it'll get under those leaves. So just going around the edges with the Blueprint Sketch, and then coming in with the black soot to create or give that nighttime effect. And then when I remove it, you'll see the leaves popping through with the green color. So I thought this came out really awesome, and this stencil is a lot of fun. It's just, you got to be a little careful with it. It's a little tricky if those leaves move, but go slow and just do kind of a dabbing motion with it. Works great. So I'm just finishing up with my black soot, adding into the middle, kind of blending that out a little bit, and coming back in with my other colors. And now to finish off that galaxy, I want to do some speckles of white paint. So I'm just taking an acrylic block, putting down some white paint, and then I'm going to bring in just a little dab of water. You can't see on screen yet, but I brought in a little bit of water on that block, mixed it together with a paintbrush, and then I'm going to flick this onto my paper while my stencil is still there, because I want the stars, or what look like stars, to be in that background and not necessarily on the leaves. So you'll see how this comes together in just a moment. And I'm just going around. If you add more water, your paint is going to thin and it won't be as vibrant. So depending how much water you use. And then once I finish that, I can carefully remove this, and I'm going to just go ahead, rinse off my brush and my stencil right away. The paint doesn't have any effects on it. You just got to be careful. Sometimes if it's too watered down, you may get underneath those leaf parts of your stencil. And like I said, these are kind of delicate, so you just kind of have to carefully remove where you had that tape down. And so now I have these beautiful green leaves and that galaxy background there. So now I'm going to come in and start working on my image. I am going to be using the Hello There stamp set. A lot of cute little critters on here with some sayings. I'm just going to be using the monkey on this one. Thought he worked really well with that leafy background. So I'm just using my Mini Misty, lining that up onto some Neenah Solaroid cardstock. This is 80 pound, and I'm going to stamp it in Simon Says Stamp Black ink, which is a Copic friendly ink. And I do stamp that twice just to make sure that it has a nice crisp lines. So this beginning part that I'm going to be coloring with my Copic markers, I do leave a little bit where I'm showing you how slow I actually go when it comes to coloring, and now I'm speeding it up. And I do have the colors listed across the top there. The E59 is the darkest, E37 and E35 that I'll blend out with. And I typically just jump right into my darkest color, which is the E59, adding shadow areas kind of in the bottom parts of the ears, around the muzzle, just that bottom part there, and blending upwards. I also added shadow areas to the inside of his legs and underneath his arms, and then little bits of his tail where I think his body would be casting that shadow. So once I have the darkest down, I'm coming in with the E37 to blend that out, and then I'll finish blending it with the E35. And typically, because of this Neenah cardstock that I prefer to use, I do like to go over mine twice. That just helps me blend better, and I can deepen up my shadows if I want to. I'm kind of one of those where I really like to have those deep shadows in there. So going over it twice just helps me achieve that look that I'm going for. So once I have that done, I'm coming in with an R20 is what I start with, which is a lightest color. And then I add the darkest, which is the R22. And I decided to give this little monkey a pink nose. I just thought he looked like he needed a pink nose. Now for the belly, I'm using the E13, E11, and E01. I did start out with the lightest, which is the E01, and I kind of flip back and forth on, you know, how I start, if I start with the darkest or start with the lightest, just kind of what I'm feeling at the moment. So same thing, I'm just blending out darkest to lightest with those colors. And I thought he turned out pretty cute. So once he's all colored up, I did come in with a Copic pen and just darken in those eyes because I kind of lost how black they were with over the Copic markers. So now I'm using the coordinating die to die cut my monkey out. And I used Post-it tape because that just has a nice hold and will not rip my paper. So now I have that sweet little monkey ready for a card. And now here's my background, and I know I have that leaf that is missing some color. So I decided to cheat, and I just came in with a random green color pencil that kind of matched what I had going there. And I just went over that a few times until I achieved the look that I needed to match the rest of it. If you look up close, you can see, but honestly, I don't think anybody's really gonna know. Anyway, so I'm now gonna come in and work on my sentiment. So I'm using the Misty tool again, prepping my cardstock with an anti-static powder tool. Make sure your background is nice and dry so that none of your embossing powder is going to stick. And I'm using a sentiment that is off of this Playful Messages stamp set. A lot of really funny sentiments on here. So this stamp set, I know I'm going to use some more. So I decided to use You're My Favorite Person. And I'm lining that up in my Misty. I'm going to stamp that in the Simon Says Stamp Clear ink, which is a sticky ink that I like to use for embossing, and then sprinkle that with some silver embossing powder. I thought that just looked really good with my background that I have. The silver kind of just reminded me of stars, so that's why I went with. Now, my paper did kind of warp a little bit between all the blending and my embossing, so I'm going to use some craft foam that I'm attaching with double-sided tape. I put my panel down first, face down, and then apply my craft foam. That just seems to help me better when I'm lining things up, and I can trim off the excess with my scissors. And then I'm going to go ahead and attach this to an A2 size white panel of Neenah Solar White cardstock. So my card is pretty much almost done. It just has a few finishing touches. And I'm just wiping off any excess powder with a Swiffer pad, Swiffer rag. I'm not sure. It's a Swiffer. So now I'm just coming in and I'm attaching my monkey, and I just used some regular tape runner adhesive because I thought this card had enough dimension to it. Now for my finishing touches, I really have a thing for these confetti sequins. I don't think you call them sequins, but they're confetti and they're just so pretty, and I thought it would look really well with my background. So I'm just going to use my jewel picker to help attach those to the card and I'll be using some Gina K Connect glue to get that all attached, and that's going to pretty much finish up my card. So I really hope you enjoyed taking a look at another way to use this stencil and creating this background with it. If you did enjoy it, please give the video a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. I'll have all the supplies listed down below and on my blog as well. Thanks for stopping, and I'll catch you next time.